Open the public hearing. Actually, we'll open the committee on Ways and Means, and I'll ask Senator Rosenwald to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
And with that, I'll open the public hearing on House Bill 247 and recognize the prime sponsor, Representative Ohm. Welcome to Senate Ways and Means. I think it's my first time seeing you here since you've been back in the House. Can you introduce your bill, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's nice to see you again. Pleasure to be testifying before your committee. I'm the prime sponsor of House Bill 247, which is a bill authorizing municipalities to hold a referendum on whether to allow historic horse racing. In the past, expanded gaming traditionally had required a referendum to implement. For example, in Keno, we had a referendum requirement, and I believe also in sports betting, where we had a brick and mortar store that would be subject to the bill. Historic horse racing did not have that provision, so this bill attempts to put that back into statute. Most of the bill is taking the language from the Keno RSA, which is section 284:51, which I've dropped off a copy. And I've highlighted the changes where Keno had been substituted for historic horse racing. So most of the bill up through Roman numeral 5 is strictly a repeat of what's in statute for Keno. What's new is exempting the existing licenses of HHR facilities to continue to operate without the provision. And the bill, as introduced, exempts any HHR licensees until January 1 of 2026 to avoid having the referendum requirement. The bill, as amended by the House, which is amended number 06258, extended that exemption for not only entities that have the license in process, but entities who are eligible for such a license going forward. So that's pretty much the bill. And I'll take any questions.
Questions from the committee? So I just have one clarifying question. This is an opt-in provision. It makes the assumption that any town that currently doesn't have a Games of Chance and an HHR license would then have to vote to allow it. Otherwise, it's deemed prohibited.
That is correct.
Why only this form of gaming?
This was written up before VLT became a likely possibility. So it's a bit outdated in the sense that it only covers HHR. A better bill would add VLT onto this.
Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you. And as you know, I will be bringing forward an amendment to add VLTs if they're authorized. But since cities only vote every 2 years, would you be in favor of making the bill effective on passage so that cities could place this question on their ballot this coming fall?
Senator, yes, I would. I think that's an excellent idea.
Thank you.
Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Representative Moon. Next up is Representative Horgan.
I represent Timothy Horgan from Stratford County District 10, which is the town of Durham, which currently does not have any historic horse racing machines within its borders. And I would probably, if we had a referendum, this bill, it would probably fail. But so the issue that I wanted to underline is one that we already had a little bit of discussion of a minute ago, which is the fact that VLTs are coming in, Vitro Lottery Returnables, and basically the existing historic horse racing machines have little or nothing to do with horse racing, at least as far as the users are. These things, I think, were created in races that had a large horse racing industry as a way of making up some of the lost revenue from the declining popularity of horse racing as a spectator sport, although it's still which was, I think the company that makes them is based in Arkansas, and then in Kentucky, which is the state where my mother, who didn't play the horses, or my grandmother did play the horses, was from. So it may make sense in a state like that. And actually, when we put in these machines several sessions ago, we still had a racetrack in Salem, which now no longer exists. It's now it's become a large mall and a residential development. So we really don't have any horse racing industry here in New Hampshire. So there's nothing here to, there's nothing here for us to preserve or protect in terms of a horse racing industry. So these are basically just slot machines, and I feel that probably the VLTs are a better way of like creating a random number generating mechanism for the slot machines than the historical horse racing, but probably both forms will coexist for a while. So I would certainly, sounds like there probably will be an amendment to bring those devices within the bill. So I would heartily underline that, and I'm sure I would be able to vote for the Committee of Conference report if and when a bill amended that way comes over from the Senate. And I guess it's passed on consent, so we all voted for it. But I certainly, certainly what we have is good, and I think it would be made even better if you broadened it to include all types of slot machines, because really, there's, as I said, the historic horse racing really has nothing much to do with horse racing. I think my grandmother, who did like to go down the Churchill Downs, where she lived a few miles away and play the machines, would have been bored to tears by these machines, because the handicapping, the horse racing handicapping thing is you have to press several buttons even to get to it, and I think it's probably like somebody who's into horse racing would probably not be interested in it anyway. So, and most people just bypass it. So that's what I have to. So anyway, that's what I have to say. I think the bill should be amended. I mean, it's fine as it's useful as is, but it should be. I think the amendment, I agree, would make it even better. So thanks.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Dr. Wardner.
Good morning, Senators and Mr. Chairman from the Ways and Means Committee. I am in favor of this bill. I think it is great to give local towns and cities the option to welcome or not welcome the horse racing machines. I agree with the previous speaker that it would be good to broaden this to the other machines as well.
Questions for Dr. Wardner? Dr. Wardner, I just have one. You and I have had this discussion on several times, opt-in versus opt-out. This bill happens to be an opt-in. Basically, it makes it illegal across the entire state unless the town chooses to allow it. How do you feel about the inverse of that? An opt-out provision that says it's legal everywhere, but if a town wants to, it could prohibit.
I understand. I did talk with the author of the bill that that's probably what's going to happen.
Well, but my question is, what's your feeling on it? Why is one better than the other?
I think the opt-in is more natural. I think it makes sense to the people in the towns that they should be asked first before someone comes in, that it's not a presumption that they have a right to come in. But then again, the other way is at least still having a voice, and the opt-out is okay.
Other questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Did you have one? Thank you very much. Director McIntyre, do you mind stepping up?
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Charlie McIntyre, Lottery Commission. This is an issue for you folks and a policy decision of the legislature. We would have no position on this. So
Understood. I just want to ask you some questions about should the law go into effect versus not. What would this, if the law was to go into effect and we made it an opt-in provision that they had to, it was prohibited statewide and then have to opt in, how would that affect revenues? How would that affect growth of the industry? And I recognize it's a legislative prerogative
Yes.
to how we do with it, but I'm also cognizant of how the industry works and how the state receives its revenue.
Since it's my understanding this doesn't affect the existing operations, it would not impact our existing revenue estimates for the legislature for this biennium or the next biennium. And certainly, given the potential change of machines, the way this is drafted now, it really wouldn't impact it until 2031, where the moratorium would no longer be in effect, essentially.
So this bill, again, in effect, there'd be no new growth of new operators anyway until 2031 because of the fact that we put a moratorium on the licenses for HHR. And if BLT passes, they're tied to that moratorium as well. So these operations couldn't go into effect until 2031 anyway.
Excuse me, sorry. And based on the existing spread of where the operators are and their planned expansions and growth, I would anticipate by the time the moratorium was
Expired.
thank you, the market would be saturated already by that point.
Any other Representative, Senator Murphy.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Question, if there is local option for Keno currently,
Yes.
is there a process in place by which a community may revoke permission for Keno? If, for instance, Bedford doesn't allow Keno. Bedford votes this year to allow Keno. Could they, 3 years from now, say, you know what, we made a mistake, let's revoke that?
There's no provision in the law one way or the other, so it's one of those, we jump that bridge when we get to it. Certainly, in the history of the state, because the opt-in provision was first passed in '63 when the lottery was passed. And there were like 20 communities that said no. And I think I told you folks, a bunch of them forgot and licensed retailers anyway, because they forgot about it. I got 3 or 4 calls from towns. But nobody had ever undone that in the 60 years we've been doing this. So I can't tell you what we would do. I'd seek the advice of counsel.
Thank you.
Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Director.
Good morning.
Could you, I can barely remember back to 2018 when we licensed Keno.
Yes.
Could you please give us some context of why we went with an opt-in on that versus an opt-out? Did the Lottery Commission take a position, or what was the
If I recall correctly,
background?
I think it was based on the original language from the 1963 passage of the law, which allowed the towns to say yes or no to a lottery, because at that time it was the first lottery, or the first modern lottery in the US. And so it was sort of what was then considered a radical step. And that's why. I think it was just following tradition.
I'll add to that. And from serving on Ways and Means in the House, it was how we got the bill passed.
Yeah.
It was required to, as a negotiating object, they would pass it if we had a local adoption versus opt-out. But I don't think opt-out was even discussed. It was strictly, they wanted the towns to have a say. Any other questions for Director McIntyre? Seeing none. Thank you, Charlie. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on House Bill 247? I'll tell you, we're not going to exec this bill today. So anybody who's waiting for that, that won't happen at the end of the session. So we're going to hold this bill and have more discussion. And with that, I'll close the public hearing on House Bill 247. And in 1 minute, we'll open the next one. Thank you. So what's the next one? 312. We'll again open a public hearing on House Bill 328, and just one quick statement in case I wasn't clear. We're not going to exec any of the gaming bills today. So anybody who's going to be sticking around waiting for those, know that we're not going to be doing that today. So, Representative Ames.
Thank you. I am Representative Dick Ames, and I am the prime sponsor of this bill. I represent Jaffrey and Dublin and Cheshire District 13. This is clearly a bipartisan bill. You see the sponsors range across partisan lines, and it touches on, but it doesn't really take a position on many of the key issues that are active today that relate to our varying gambling enterprises that are allowed in New Hampshire. It is one of the products of the work of the Commission on Gambling that was, maybe it was called Gaming, that was active last summer. And Senator Lang and I and Representative Doucette and Representative Janigian and others, along with the director of the lottery, who was actually a member of the commission, I think, a welcome member, worked pretty actively during the summer and did make some specific recommendations, had help of a consultant, and identified a lot of moving parts that we thought couldn't be addressed in the time frame we had, nor perhaps should they be addressed definitively, but that there needed to be a process and oversight system that continued on beyond the life of this time-limited commission that we were a part of. So this represents, tries to flag the issues that are ongoing and that needed to be looked at more thoroughly. Problem gaming is one, and a bunch of others that are laid out here. It's a little bit dated in its language because it doesn't have the video lottery terminals language. Is that what they're called? VLTs, yeah, in the current bills. So if I were doing this over, I certainly would flag VLTs. But beyond that, I think it stands pretty well. The membership of the commission was revised in the House to put, for example, the director of lottery back into the non-voting group, and that was by request and after discussion that seemed appropriate. As he said this morning on a different bill, he tries not to take a position on the policy issues, but is there to help, and he is extraordinarily helpful. I think we all know that. So that's basically it. It's a 10-year commission and has an obligation to issue its first report this coming November. I think that's enough.
Questions from the committee? Senator Roosevelt.
Make a huge mess. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Representative Ames. I've just a technical question on line 12 of page 1. There are 5 House members, but only one of them is from Ways and Means.
Only one.
Only one of them is from House Ways and Means. And so theoretically, the other 4 could be from Fish and Game or anywhere. My question is, should it say at least one of whom is from House Ways and Means?
Oh, that's a reasonable suggestion, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And that is probably the source of most of the people who are really into this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to follow up on that question. Would you be opposed to, as I'm looking at these 5 members of the House, and the same with the language and above in the Senate members, is saying that it'll be the chair of Ways and Means or his designee, as well as the ranking member or their designee of Ways and Means. So we have a Republican and Democrat from Ways and Means to
Yeah.
discuss and make that as part of the membership, because they're basically the policy experts in the legislature on this topic.
I'm completely open to changes like that. I think you make your judgment, and I think it's a choice that is reasonable, the one that you've articulated. Yeah.
Further questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, representatives. Next up is Representative Bill Ohm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Bill Ohm, Hillsborough 10, City of Nashville, Ward 9. I just want to briefly say that I support and acknowledge the testimony of the prime sponsor, Representative Ames. And I also acknowledge and support the comments that we might have a few amendments made by the Senate to clarify the membership. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? I have one for you. Would you be opposed? So as I read the bill, my concern was the ability, because this is going to be a standing committee, it looks like. I'm not sure if I saw a repeal date on this.
10 years.
Oh, it actually repealed in 2035, so it's a 10-year commission. So my question was, would you support the idea of allowing a provision in here to basically self-direct their investigations and their oversight, to say on a majority vote of the commission, we're going to take up this topic and bring that up, and if everybody agrees, and it allow them to keep a running list of topics over the 10 years rather than the defined list that it has in here?
Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion, Mr. Chairman. I certainly would support that.
Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Representative. Next up is Dr. Warner. Did you not want to speak on this bill, Doctor?
Did you say my name?
Yes. Oh, I know you have a hearing. Apologize.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate being able to address you. I have written testimony. Thank you. I'm Dr. Deborah Warner from Littleton, and I've been at all of the commission meetings, the prior commission, during 2024, and it was very interesting and very comprehensive. I think that continuing that process and having an oversight on a more permanent basis is a very good thing. The industry is growing very quickly. It's expanding rapidly. Many changes are happening to the existing casinos. Outside investors are on the horizon with a new influence on the casino landscape. It would be wise for us to watch these developments carefully and for the state to remain keenly aware of the complexities of this industry to be ready to quickly respond to regulatory needs. The agenda of this commission, as stated in the bill, is good. It includes a reference to the detailed report that came out of the previous commission that had many, many good points. It was a very busy commission, as you could imagine. Equipment efficiency, facility conditions, licensing, complex formulas for transactions, charitable requirements and qualifications, even problem gambling coverage. And the report was unanimously approved by the previous commission, and with hope that these could be addressed. I'm a psychologist, and I am particularly interested in the issues of problem gambling and also the ways in which the charities could be evaluated, the selection criteria, and the accountability that I believe is needed for these grants that are provided, which currently there are no rules at all. And I think that's something that I think the commission can address, and with a careful examination of these things. If I were to improve this a teeny bit, since I'm not saying it needs to happen, but if you could include voting capability for the public members who are not involved and affiliated with the industry, I think that would be very good, because the public is, the ordinary citizens are affected. Local businesses, the community, and so on are also affected, and I think it would be very good to have their voting input in this process. So I thank you very much, and I'm available.
Questions for Dr. Warden? Seeing none, thank you, Doctor, very much.
Thank you very much.
Before I call Alicia, who's going to be next, I'm going to ask Representative Ames to come back up because I had a question that popped into my, after looking at the bill. So Representative Ames, I'm going to bring your attention to page 2, section 7, which is line 25. We're talking about the dates of reports that are due by the commission.
Wait a minute.
Page 2, line 25, section, it's Roman numeral 7. The commission shall submit a report on or before.
Right, okay, I'm with you now.
So my concerns on the dates are that the dates that are suggested are, the only people that would ever be able to file a bill would be the Senate, because you're after the filing date for all the House members. If something came out of the commission that required a legislative or was a suggested legislative change, your November 30th date would preclude the House from filing a bill unless they went to go chase down the rules to get a late filed bill.
Wait a minute.
So my question is, would you recommend a change? Would you support a change of that date to be like September 1st? So that there's time for House members. In the first year, we can push it out to November, but in the second year, the subsequent years, a September 1st date so that House members have time to
Yeah.
file bills because your
Yeah.
bill filing period is open. Your bill filing period in the House is closed by September 30th, October 30th.
I think that's reasonable. That's a good point, actually, a very good point. And it's always an issue. I mean, there's often a default to something like November 30th, but then all of a sudden, you know, we don't have the report and we need to act on something that's not there yet. And it might even make sense to have the ongoing date be, let's say, November 1st rather than November 30th, just for the same reason.
I was actually thinking the ongoing date to be September
Yeah.
1st, because that's when you guys have your early bill filing period.
Why not? Yeah, makes sense to me.
Great. Any further questions? Thank you, Representative Ames.
Yep.
And last up is Alicia Preston.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, Senators, members of the committee. My name is Alicia Preston. I represent the New Hampshire Charitable Gaming Operators Association, and we're in favor of this bill. The industry has long worked with the legislature and various commissions and committees over the years. It is an evolving industry, and I think it's been very helpful to all parties involved to be able to engage with each other on a regular basis. And so for that reason, we're in support of this, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none? Thank you,
Thank you.
Alicia. Is there anybody else who wishes to, Charlie, sorry. You didn't check the favor of oppose, so I skipped by you.
I take no position on the bill, obviously. I believe we're subject to significant oversight, but if you folks are more comfortable with more, then more is fine with us. The only issue I have is in terms of drafting on page 2, line 1, the first sentence of section 5. That would seem to appear that this commission is actually the operational head of the lottery implementation of charitable gambling laws. Because implementation is the first cousin of execution, which means you're it's in the executive branch. So I think that gives me fear and pause.
So we reworded that to make sure that it's just a review of law.
Correct. Yeah,
Not of implementation.
obviously, all of the enumerated charges are perfectly, it's just that first sentence could be read to mean that the commission now is in the executive branch running the agency, so.
We'll take a look at that in the amendment that I'm sure is going to be forthcoming.
Okay.
Any other questions for the director? Thank you, Charlie. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on House Bill 328? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on House Bill 328. Representative Boyd? You're gonna introduce for him, Jerry? Good, good. See, we have a minute or two to wait, but you can jump up in the chair.
Thank you. Good morning.
1 second.
Yep.
We still gotta just wait to make the time.
Sure.
There we go. I'll open the public hearing on House Bill 737 and recognize the co-sponsor, Jerry, Representative Stringham.
Hi, good morning. Thank you all. I'm here to introduce House Bill 737-L, creating local options for games of chance. This bill is not a gambling bill, but a local option bill. Regardless of one's opinions on gambling, this bill seeks to allow local control on the decision whether to allow local casinos to operate locally. This bill brings similar local rights relating to casinos that are already in place for Keno, the local option through the local warrant article process. The local option design of this bill conserves the investment made by casino operators already involved and only brings an exit vote if a casino has been abandoned for a period of 4 years or if it never opened 6 years after being originally permitted. In committee, the casino lobby agreed to the local option concept and helped develop language that was acceptable to both the casinos and the local option proponents. This casino interests have been very reasonable and helpful in the development of this bill, and the constituents have been diligent with this joint work that extends beyond even just this term. The local option would give local municipalities a voice in the process of casino opening in their town and city. And the reasons why a local option should be enacted, it's consistent with casinos, with Keno, statutes that require local permission. A casino can be a very large presence in a community economically and has impact upon the business sector. Casino has related risks for addictions that are acknowledged in the state's approach to gaming. And these are large influences, are risks, and it's reasonable for those locally to have a voice in whether they want to have that in their own area or not. So there are others here who work more on this than me, but I'm pleased to introduce this to you and happy to take questions, or you may choose to defer them to others. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you for your testimony, Senator Fenton.
Just one. Van, thank you for taking my question. So currently, a municipality cannot enforce a no casino ordinance?
Right, gaming facilities are not, they came in as basically the card gaming facilities. Of course, slot machines were banned in the state. And there's been a creep in the kind of activities that occur at these charitable gaming establishments. There was never an ability for a regulation to allow a town to opt out of having those charitable gaming facilities. Now they have historic horse racing in them, which operate very much like slot machines, and there's still no voice for the local towns to not have them be present. So the story of what happened in Conway and Littleton may be shared by others here who, when historic horse racing came in, objected to those kind of machines, but the gaming laws already protected the investments that were being made at that time. And so what this does is for places that don't have gaming establishments, allows them to opt out. So yes, you're absolutely correct. There's no opt-out for charity gaming establishments.
Follow up, Mr. Chair? Okay, so just, all right, and then, so if there's currently a casino, just looking at line 18, shall we prohibit the operation, or, where is it? Oh, okay, line 21. shall we prohibit additional brick and mortar games of chance? So, okay, so if there's already an existing one, it's not gonna affect them, but if I was a casino operator and I'm the only one, maybe I'd push to not have any other casinos open so that now I'm the only one in town.
Well, I'm not sure they would be able to do that because it's a town opt-out. And maybe others here can speak to that particular provision. So,
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Representative. Our next speaker is Dr. Warner.
I have testimony. Hello, back again, Dr. Debbie Warner from Littleton. The origin of this bill was in Littleton. We had a meeting at the high school, surprise meeting. There's a casino coming to town, and there were more than 100 residents came. 95% of the comments were wanting to repel the casino from coming. And so we looked it up and we read through the statute and also the majority and minority reports that went with the passage of that. And in the reports, it did say that you could deal with local issues, like not wanting the casino, by doing an ordinance. So we set to work immediately and put forth an ordinance. And on January 3rd in 24, we sat in front of the planning board presenting our ordinance. And they said, it's a lovely ordinance, but it has no teeth at all because of the Dillon rule. And that's when we started this work on this option that you see in front of you. It started out looking like the one earlier today as an opt-in. And then we went through the process with the houses and in the Senate, and we did turn into an opt-out process, which in fact, given the moratorium that's in place, there's 6 years left on that moratorium, it does give towns around the state enough time to go ahead and pass their own options. If they wanted to opt out, it would give them time for that. So it works out. It's fine. I wanted to let you know some other things from this is that the mechanics of this we came up with in concert with the casino lobbyist, with Rick. Unfortunately, I'm just slipping on his last name. Very dear man who has passed away. And he helped us craft this together. And he pointed us to the games of chance employer license as the actionable item in order to prohibit or allow a casino. And that is why that is the target of this legislation in the ordinance, the RSA and such like that. Historic horse racing and any other games of chance all depend upon having a games of chance employer license. It's the underlying license. And so that's why this targets that. It maintains protections for the 14 currently operating casinos, as well as the 5 that are in application status at the Lottery Commission. And it's, although that means that Littleton's not protected from this, people think is an intrusion. We are still very much in favor of the bill, and we support it wholeheartedly and believe it will be improvement for the rest of the state and a guarantee for the things they need. Let's see. It does not impact revenue because the casinos it would or would not prohibit have not created revenue yet. So it's not going to change any of the revenue figures that you would have in front of you.
Questions for Dr. Warden? Seeing none. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on House Bill 737?
Could I ask Director McIntyre?
Director McIntyre, of course, you're getting called up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Good
you.
morning again. With me is Valerie King from our Investigations and Compliance Division.
No, I just wanted to make sure that 287D wouldn't prohibit bingo.
Can you say that again? 287 wouldn't what?
287D, which is the local option for games of chance, that would not include bingo.
Correct. Bingo is regulated by 287E.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that, if I can ask a second question. So, on line 21 of page 1, it seems to me that the phrasing of brick and mortar is awkward. And I wonder if the commission could suggest language that was more accessible and meaningful to the public, like physical
We call them facilities.
places.
We call them facilities, yeah, and certainly, I think this language is taken directly from the Keno legislation. And so we can craft something for you, Senator.
That would be amazing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Director McIntyre. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on House Bill 737? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on House Bill 737. So we have about 4 minutes. I entertain a motion to go into executive session for a discussion. Been moved and seconded by Senator Murphy. We are now, all those in favor of going to executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And all those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So I want, one of the things I want to talk about is, first, we have a non-germane amendment that I submitted out to everybody at the request of Director McIntyre. It's amendment number 1468. It'll be noticed as a non-germane amendment for next week. But we're not going to be here. It's an amendment to 737 dealing with licensing fees in games of chance, in lottery, and licensing in general. So I just want to make members aware to go ahead and read it, because we'll be having a discussion about it in 2 weeks. It's amended to, the amendment's drafted for 737. And the amendment number is 1468. And I'll make sure Sonia gets it out if you don't have it. I'll make sure you get it. But it basically was a request of lottery, a piece of law that they wanted this year, that needed to get it grafted onto something. And so I'm going to bring a non-germane amendment to this bill we just heard, and we can talk about it. What's that? We'll have a non-germane hearing on the 16th. That'll be on the schedule. So, and then we can take it up from there. We can talk about all the other amendments as well to that, so we can make sure we align the amendments properly. So that was number 1. Number 2, again, just trying to be efficient. Why did they put that bill? I don't know. Revenue projections, we're going to have a hearing on April 30th on revenue projections. I'm going to change up a little way we do it. Rather than drag all the commissioners in and have them testify, I'm only going to bring the big numbers people in, and ask all the other commissioners to submit a letter to us. And we'll give them the option if they want to come and testify, but basically to submit a letter to Ways and Means saying, has your revenue projections changed from the House? And if so, what's the change? And if so, why? Right? Let them just submit a letter to us rather than show up to testify. We can base our revenue projections on that. My goal is to have, obviously, DRA come in because they do the largest portion of our business taxes and everything else. Most of those taxes are managed by them. So DRA will come in. Director McIntyre will be asked to come in to talk about revenue projections. We'll have a little better idea what's going on in lottery, and what those numbers are going to look like. And then I'm going to ask the insurance department to come in, because we have the whole net dish thing and the whole conversation about what's going on around revenues and what that's going to look like. And so I'm going to ask them to come in. In addition to that, I'm going to ask 2 private sector groups to come in. I'm going to ask the Realtors Association to send somebody so we can take a look at what's going on with the housing industry, so we can figure out what's going to happen to the real estate transfer tax. So we'll bring them in, talk about that. I'm also going to bring in Mike Summers from the hospitality industry. He can deal with how things are going in the tourism industry and rooms, percentage of bookings in rooms, and as that compares to last year, and what projections for the next 2 years might look like, to give us an idea what tourism is going to look like for the next couple of years, again, to help us with that projection. Is there anybody else you think we really should bring in?
Yes. Thank you. I think we should bring in liquor.
Okay,
And I wonder if we could bring in the treasurer briefly, because the interest on the state's cash reserves has been overperforming so much. I'd like to get a sense from her of what that downward slope is likely to be in the next budget.
sure. So I know, we're happy to do that. I know liquor's numbers are going to be down.
Right.
So liquor, my conversation with the commissioner, the director over there, is that young people aren't drinking as much. And because of that, the 20-year-olds, the 21-year-olds of now are not the same 21-year-olds of 20 years ago, right? And that group, that age range is not drinking nearly as much liquor as before. We can blame Brody for that. But the revenues are being driven down pretty significantly.
I think there might be other reasons too.
We were looking at some statistics on Gen X and alcohol consumption, and it's 75% lower.
Yeah, but I think there are probably additional reasons beyond just young people not drinking.
So anyway, Sonia, let's bring liquor and treasurer in at the request of the committee member.
Thank you.
Anything else, guys? Great. Last thing I'm just going to quick talk about is HB2. As you know, the House has passed most of their measures. I think they have a vote this Thursday to finalize HB2. There are some gaming provisions in that. I am meeting with the governor today to talk about the gaming provisions to where she is on those changes the House made. But I'm going to ask the committee, and we may do it on the 30th, if not on the following 2 weeks later when we come back to vote on revenues on the 16th, I think it is. What's that number? What's that date for the second meeting? We said in May. We have the 30th of April. We're doing revenue projections, and then 2 weeks later.
I thought we were going to go next week.
No, it's 7th. So the 7th we'll meet to actually vote on revenue projections to be able to give it to finance. And maybe on that day, we'll talk about the provisions of gaming in HB2, because we're the policy committee on that topic. And just talk about what's in it, and what's a non-starter for some members that we might want to recommend to finance to change, and what is you're completely okay with. But we'll have just a conversation in the committee. Good. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
It's been moved by Senator Sullivan, seconded by Senator Murphy to come out of executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are out of executive session. And we're only 3 minutes behind. I'll now open a public hearing on House Bill 451 and recognize the prime sponsor, Representative.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I made copies of my testimony. I don't know whether you have that? You do, and the report, okay. Thank you very much to the committee for having me here today. My name is Karen Ebel, and I represent Merrimack District 7. I'm here to introduce HB 451. I am here in my capacity as the chair of New Hampshire's Solid Waste Industry Stakeholder Group. That's the Solid Waste Working Group. And we represent many entities across the state. And I provided for you today a copy of our interim report. We've been in existence since 2021. And we've worked quite diligently with DES and with a lot of stakeholders to try to bring legislation forward that will move the state forward when it comes to solid waste. And one of those bills is before you today. The bill did pass unanimously on the consent calendar out of the House. There's no financial effect on the state. And that's why Chair Weiler waived it off from House Finance, so it came directly to you today. It did go through a thorough hearing process before the House and the Commerce Committee. Not one person testified against it, and many testified in support. The bill would create in New Hampshire a post-consumer paint stewardship program. It is a fully bipartisan bill, and by that I mean it really has people from both sides of the aisle supporting it. It's a prototype that has been used in quite a few other states, and it is a program that is supported by business. Once the program is in place, consumers will be able to bring their leftover paint and other related products to participating retailers, and their participation is voluntary. That paint would be brought back for recycling. And similarly, municipalities which host expensive household hazardous waste collection days can turn over their paint to the manufacturer-created stewardship organization for recycling. And about half of all household hazardous waste is paint. Once the program is up and running, anybody can bring their paint in for recycling, whether they purchased it before or after the program is in operation. And it should provide great convenience for folks. So one of the things that this does, in particular, it supports the state's solid waste management goals. And I haven't been before this committee before, but we recently, DES recently adopted a solid waste management plan to help guide the state through its solid waste management issues. It hadn't been updated in about 20 years. And since that time, we all know, of course, landfill issues have been front and center. But the other side of this coin is to do something to try to recycle and use our landfills for things that really need to be landfilled. And for this reason, I'm bringing to you a bill that is perhaps unusual in that it's supported by the BIA, by Waste Management, by Casella. It's supported by the New Hampshire Municipal Association, many environmental organizations, and also a small hardware store chain that participates in this program in other places in New England. And I'm proud of that because I think one of the benefits of the Solid Waste Working Group is it brings together many voices. We build consensus before we bring a bill forward, and so far we've been fairly successful. I did give you a discussion of the bill history. It did previously, in the previous year, it went through House Environment and Agriculture on the consent calendar, but just the way the whole situation played out, unlike in this circumstance, they weren't able to work as closely with Paint Care, which is the stewardship program or operator. And so when it got here, Paint Care had issues with it, and so you interim studied it. So what I did this time is I brought it as an issue to the Solid Waste Working Group. We agreed to bring it forward, and I worked closely with Paint Care, with the American Coatings Association, and DES. So this bill has been really fully vetted, pretty much to the nth degree. So I think that what I'm bringing to you is a fully supported, well-constructed bill. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I do want to call out one thing. The executive director of the Northeast Resources Recycling or Recovery Association couldn't be here today, Reagan Bissonette. That is the nonprofit organization that works with virtually all municipalities in the state of New Hampshire to help them with their contracts relating to their solid waste. They did do an analysis. Household hazardous waste collection days for a community of about $9,600 cost $13,000 of taxpayer money. what they figured out is over half of what's coming in is paint. And so if you can take that paint out of the waste stream and ensure that it's recycled through a stewardship program, you also save taxpayer dollars and hassle. And also with those household hazardous waste days, usually the paint is disposed of in landfills. And this way it would ensure that it would be recycled. And one question we had come up during the hearings on the other side of the wall is whether or not the cans that the paint comes in are recycled, and yes, they are as part of the program. So you can basically just bring your can into any participating retailer, hand it over to them, and then maybe once a month or whatever, the Paint Care, the stewardship organization would come around and pick it up. So a lot of retailers are really interested and supportive of this program because it helps build customer traffic when people come back with their paint for recycling. And that's why Aubuchon, for instance, has participated in it for quite a while. So I think that's it in a nutshell. If you have specific questions about the bill, I can help with those. We also do have a industry representative here from the American Coatings Association, and she could get into the nuts and bolts with you of how the program is anticipated to work here and how it works in other states. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. This might actually be for some expert that's behind you, perhaps. So I just happened to see something on what's happening in California with their waste, and especially batteries, and it's being shipped across the country and buried in other states. So what actually happens to the products, these products, if they leave New Hampshire?
Well, she can answer in more detail, but let me just say that if these if the paint products, and this includes aerosols, it includes all kinds of things, if they're not collected and recycled in this way, generally what's going on is they go to a landfill. And so oil paints and things of that nature are considered hazardous waste, and I think they tend to get disposed of in other places than regular landfills. Again, DES is here, they can be more specific about that. But this will be collected by the stewardship organization, and they have contracts with recyclers, and it will be recycled. I would say, again, she can give you the numbers, but my recollection is that at least 70% or something like that is recycled. There may be some contaminated that they can't, and also the tin cans. So the situation that you're talking about that's arisen in California, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid here. And I will say the reason that Waste Management and Casella and actually municipalities, some of whom, like if you're from Nashua, you know you have your own landfill. That's why groups like that support this, because it really helps their situation from a waste standpoint. And anything that we can keep out of the landfills also, of course, helps us maintain capacity for ourselves. I hope that answered your question at some level. We actually have a hope of doing something better with batteries soon, but we're working on paint first.
Any further questions from the committee? Can you walk me through the requirements of each level? So we have a manufacturer, we have the stewardship program, which seems to be an outside agency that's going to be managing the paint recycling process. We have the retailer or town that's going to act as the collection site. And then you have the consumer at the bottom who's going to actually buy the paint, bring the junk paint back when they're all done. Walk me through the requirements of each one of those entities as provided by your bill.
Okay, well, I'm going to give it a shot. The real nuts and bolts of the thing, I'm going to ask the American Coatings Association to handle. But Okay, you correct me if I mess something up. But so this is the way it works. The manufacturers have all come together through their trade association, the American Coatings Association, and have decided that considering the toxicity and problems of handling paint products, they wanted to do better with those products. And so what they've done is they've created an entity called Paint Care, which is a post-consumer stewardship program. And that organization takes care of working with the manufacturers. They're the point at which any fees are collected. They're sort of the bank for that. They also are the organization that works with recycling groups to make those contracts. They're the organization that works with people that have to pick up the paint. And they're the people that work with the retailers, when a retailer wants to be a participant for bringing the paint back, they're the ones that would arrange it. The other thing that Paint Care does is they have to create a plan, obviously, for the state. So they have a plan that, is the model plan that's been very successful in other states. They would, under this bill, what they do is they work with DES to just walk through the program with DES. And there is a role here because, some of these things are toxic, oil paints and whatever, but they work through a plan with DES. DES would approve the plan. And once the plan is in place, then Paint Care would gear up the program. There is a assessment that is included in the cost of the paint that is worked on by the association, and then that helps fund the program. So the whole thing is basically self-funded. The other thing is at some level there's, to the extent that we need some administrative oversight from DES, we worked very hard to ensure that all costs to DES were defrayed in advance for the run-up and after, and there really isn't much oversight they have to do, but we ensured that their costs are defrayed because I didn't want there to be a cost to the state. And if you go to the fiscal note, you'll see that related costs from a state level are small anyway, and that they'll be defrayed again by the stewardship organization. And just as a side note, you'll see in the fiscal note, while it's hard to say, it is estimated that this will decrease fees for the municipal association. And the only other thing I would say as far as cost to the state is concerned is that the run up to the program, like rules and things of that nature, will take more time. And after that, it should just be rolling along and there shouldn't be too much. So I don't know if I touched everything for you, but any paint that then would be sold in the state, would have this fee in it or assessment in it. And then when people, and that's just rolled in. And then when people can just come and clean out their basements and have a party and bring whatever they want. And what I said in my testimony here is that just recently we have a regional Facebook page, as a lot of people do, and there are frequently questions on there is what the heck do I do with my paint? And people that want to use it responsibly, they're waiting for household hazardous waste days and then they miss them and then, it piles up. So all in all, this is a win for consumers. This is a win for taxpayers. It's a win for us from a solid waste management standpoint, public health, and it's also a win for the solid waste industry.
Question?
Thank you. I have two questions.
Okay.
Go ahead. The first is, does this also cover stains?
Yes.
Okay. Second question is, if I buy the paint or stain at Ace Hardware Can I
Yes.
recycle it at Aubuchon?
Yes. They want, so that's the, I mean, I think that's the really cool thing about it. God forbid, but you could buy your paint at Home Depot in Connecticut. Nobody's going to be tracking anything because this is a national organization. It's basically us participating in a national program. So nobody's sitting there trying to make sure where you bought it or anything. So in testimony that I've heard before from the association, especially when they came to the working group, they were talking about all people that, you know, they go into their mother's houses after they pass away or when they have to move. And, you know, there's a garage full of paint and stain and just waiting, sitting. And they can just, it's like relieving them of this big burden that they can just get rid of all this stuff at one place. So, I mean, the program does work. And I think that it would be a really great opportunity for New Hampshire. And it is something that's being driven by business, which is an important point. And again, I'm really happy to have the full spectrum of support from businesses all the way through to environmental organizations and just about everybody in between. Mm-hmm.
Further questions from the committee? I have one last one for you. So I'm looking, as I'm looking through this, it's the manufacturers are the ones that actually do the plan or their representatives. So the coalition,
Yeah,
the stewardship
Paint Care.
program
Right.
could do the plan from what I'm reading and doing this. The collection sites are utterly voluntary. So
Yes.
Home Depot's got to agree, Ace Hardware's got to agree, Aubuchon's got to agree. It's a completely, utterly
Right.
voluntary program on their
Right.
part. However, the cost seems to be mandatory.
Well, that's what funds the program.
I just want to
Right.
make sure I
Yeah,
understand, right?
that's true.
So the cost is mandatory. Even if they don't participate in the program, a retailer
Yeah.
is going to have to charge this fee and somehow submit it to the stewardship.
No, actually, so this is the thing, actually, I learned a lot through this process too. I mean, basically, the way this works is that the manufacturers estimate how much paint, because they're trying to make it easy for business. So the manufacturers, and let's say they're going to sell 1,000 gallons. Let's say they estimate, I'm sure they want to sell more, but let's just say they estimate that they're going to sell 1,000 gallons into the state. They'll cut a check for whatever, 50 cents a gallon, whatever that works out to, and then they just send it on a quarterly basis to the stewardship organization. They roll the assessment into the cost of the paint, and basically the retailer has zero responsibility for they just sell the paint. That's it. And the manufacturers take care of all of that at the top end. And this was a really important point in the Commerce Committee in the House. They just wanted to make sure that the program operated smoothly and there wasn't a burden put on retailers. I mean, basically, as far as they're concerned, they're just going to be putting more paint on the shelves, but they'll have this small thing in it, and then people, if they want to participate, can bring their paint back. That's basically it. And then I mentioned household hazardous waste days. Paint stewardship will work with municipalities, or according to testimony, they can also run the collection days themselves. And the other thing is that for business owners that use a lot of paint, builders or like a hospital, if they're painting a wing, the paint stewardship group will arrange to just have somebody come and pick up the paint at no cost to the facility.
Thank you. Do you have any sense of what the surcharge on the paint, let's say a gallon of something in a can would be?
So I'm gonna let the American Coatings Association representative talk a little bit about that. It can be $1. It can be $1.50. It kind of depends, as far as the state is concerned, on how much paint is taken in. But, the idea is to have it be a moderate amount to help fund the program. And it's the amount would be based, like if it was a pint or a gallon or 5 gallons, that's how it would be figured out.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you,
All
Representative
right,
Ebel.
thank you.
Next up is Representative Aaron.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Representative Judy Aaron. I represent Sullivan County District 4, the towns of Ackworth, Goshen, Langdon, Leominster, and Washington. So I'm here today, and I'm also chair of House Environment and Agriculture Committee. I'm here today to, again, support HB 451. This is a bill that my committee in the House worked on 2 years prior to this iteration. And we worked on it from the standpoint of the landfill and recycling end of it. This is a really important bill from a standpoint that, we're trying to divert some of these things from our landfills because they are pretty nasty to have there. I wanted to come here today to explain a little bit about what we do now and why we need this bill. So what we do now is we tell our consumers when you have leftover paint that you should throw it into a pile of kitty litter to dry it out and then just throw it in the trash. So what happens with that adds weight to the trash that's being delivered to local municipal transfer stations. Costs the municipalities a little bit more because here you got more weight in your load going out to your landfills. And when it does arrive in the landfills, it's a toxic material. It's subject to creating more leachate in our landfills, which is difficult to deal with. Leachate can get into the land, the water system around the landfill, and it's not a pleasant thing to have. So if we can divert these materials, these paint products from our landfills, it would go a long way to not only help our landfill operators operate a more clean landfill, but also it protects the environment. It's also an easier way for our consumers to deal with leftover paint. The other thing is, it is kind of dangerous to have cans of leftover paint in your garage or in your house, anywhere. They tend to emit odors. They tend to create problems, and so it's good to then have a mechanism where people are not storing all of this leftover paint. And also gives them an easy way to dispose of such paint. So it's a good thing all around. And I think that, from my standpoint, from our committee standpoint, looking at it from a recycling end, we had absolutely total bipartisan support both times this came through our committee and came through the House. And finally, I guess we've worked out the money end, the technical parts of the money end of it. We all know the recycling end of it already. So I'm here, I think, to support this very strongly, and I hope you will too.
Questions from the committee? I just have one. Maybe I probably should have asked Representative Ebel, but my question is, when a town runs a collection day now, is there a cost associated with that?
Yes, to the taxpayer, because the taxpayer is paying the town to run the hazardous waste day. So, the less material that they have to deal with, the less times they have to have a hazardous waste day to collect it. And I don't know what the cost is to our towns to deal with the hazardous waste once they collect it, all the paint. And I don't believe that they collect latex paint either. I think they tell people, sorry, we can't take that. We'll take the stains or the oil-based paints and that kind of thing. But I don't believe they even take latex paint anymore. So it can be a problem.
Thank you.
It could be a problem for consumers, which is why they're all being told, no, take this away, bring it home, pour it into a pile of kitty litter, dry it out, and just throw it into the trash. And that's what we end up having. So, yeah,
Any other questions for Representative? Thank you.
thank you.
You want to answer that question for me?
If you go into, do they have the testimony packet? Okay, Jonathan Melanson will give to you a testimony packet, but at the end of it, and you might have received this separately, you probably did, there's a letter from the Northeast Resource Recovery Association, Regan Bissonette, and they actually went deep on this to try to get the statistics. And I think her letter's the last one in the packet. And if you look at the last paragraph, you'll see that they tried to work this out for communities. You can see it's very detailed. 9,631 people. The average cost was over $13,000 for these collection days. On average, 53% of the material collected was paint. And you can see on average when they run these days for a community of this size, it's over $7,000 just in paint. So if you're from Nashua or Manchester or Keene or any place like that, the cost can be substantial. And I'm looking at Senator Fenton Donovan here. Donovan Fenton, I'm sorry, I switched up. So Duncan Watson did actually provide testimony on the House side. He's the very long-standing and esteemed Public Works Director in Keene, and he was a huge supporter of this bill from the Public Works side.
So again, I think it's your testimony that given that cost, there's about a $7,000 shift from the taxpayer over to the consumer who's actually buying paint.
I mean,
Roughly on average.
I
Yeah,
mean,
using
if
averages.
you want to look at it that way, I'm not sure it tracks exactly, but you could argue that that's it's being turned over to the users of the paint, as opposed to defrayed across all the taxpayers in the community.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Natch. BIA.
Thank you, Senator. Nate Grace for the Business and Industry Association. I do have a letter I'm handing out, but I just want to address a few issues here. So since we're focusing on costs, I do want to point out that this is the most efficient use of money for disposal of paints. It's brought to you by industry, solving a problem identified by industry and supported by basically everyone in the room behind me who's here on this bill. In addition to the cost of the actual disposal and the hazardous waste day, we also have a problem identified by landfill operators, which is some people just throw their cans of paint in their garbage and it goes to the landfill, which adds to the leachate problem. I won't go into great detail about the leachate problem, but one of the big issues with that, I mean, the goal is really less leachate. Less leachate overall is better for everyone because ultimately the taxpayers are funding treating that as well. So there are additional costs in addition to the ones that were identified by the Resource Recovery Organization. And, essentially what we're asking here for is permission for manufacturers to work together to address this problem. That's really what we need from a legal standpoint from the legislature. That's the problem that we've identified. And because it is a voluntary program that we are hoping that sellers of paint and municipalities will opt into, they can look at their own numbers and make sure it works for them. So that's the great thing about this is not only is it an efficient use of money, it's brought to you by industry, but it's also voluntary so that we're not going to see these costs be extensive here. And we're also going to see from the environmental perspective that improvement on what happens at the landfill level, which Representative Aaron has already addressed with you. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the committee for letting me speak this morning. My name is Bertie DeShays, and I represent the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I'll be brief, so my testimony isn't repetitive, but there is a benefit to the towns by having collection sites either that are operated at solid waste facilities or by private businesses in the municipalities. Creates less stress on the household hazardous waste days that municipalities host to limit people from improperly disposing their waste or to limit it from going into just traditional waste. If there were to be an increased cost because more waste disposal would be happening, we've seen that happen in Maine with this program, municipalities can increase fees for any items being disposed so they can deal with those increased costs. What they saw in Maine was that as the towns set up, especially in some of the more rural areas without commercial stores or stores that were selling paint, they saw not only were people bringing in hazardous waste like paint, but they were bringing in a lot of other hazardous waste that they've had lying around for years, which is a benefit to the environment and ultimately the municipalities if people are kind of incentivized to not leave their hazardous waste around on their property or improperly dispose it in other places. The one last thing I'd like to flag is a main driver of the bill last year for creating this program was Sarah Silk, and she was a select woman, a ZBA member, a Conservation Commission member in the town of Wolfboro. She passed away on December 4th. Her family is closely tracking this bill, and our town recently named a building at our solid waste facility that's for collecting hazardous waste after her. So this is a big priority to many of our municipalities, but especially to Mrs. Silk and her family too. So I just want to let the committee know, and I'll take any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my name is Heidi McAuliffe. I'm the Senior Vice President for Government Affairs for the American Coatings Association. We represent paint manufacturers, their raw material suppliers, and distributors. Really happy to be here today to talk about our stewardship program, Paint Care. As I sat there listening to some of the questions that you were asking, I thought perhaps I would revise kind of my prepared remarks and just kind of focus on some of those questions. Just briefly, this is an industry-developed, industry-supported program. Years ago, 25, 35 years ago, we didn't worry about the end-of-life management of paint. Our paint manufacturers were making paint. They were not in the business of managing the end of life. But we've come to realize the scope of this problem and realize that we needed to come to the table to help develop a solution. We did that in the early 2000s and developed the program that's now operating in 11 different states, soon to be 13 states, maybe 14 if New Hampshire passes this. And it's operating very successfully. Over the course of the last 14 years, we have collected over 76 million gallons of architectural paint, solvent-based and latex. 80% of the latex gets recycled back into mostly paint products, some other products as well. The solvent-based paint, there's not a good technology to really recycle that back into paint, so we're currently sending that mostly to energy recovery facilities. But this program does exactly what we say it's going to do. It gets all of the leftover paint out of your basements and garages. We make it convenient by setting up multiple locations. We make a commitment that we'll set up a collection location within 15 miles of everybody's home in this state so that you never have to go any farther than that. And most of the time, you have to go a lot less than 15 miles. We send transporters to those locations to pick up the collected material. They take it directly to processors. Once this program is in operation, all of the legacy paint legacy paint is paint you've had in your garage or basement for 1 year, 5 years, 20 years. Doesn't matter what brand it is. But the day we start this program, you can bring all of that paint to our collection centers and we will take it off your hands at no cost. The program is funded by a fee, as you've discussed already. The fee is established by the stewardship organization after we do an extensive study of the cost of transportation, the cost of processing, and the sales of paint in the state of New Hampshire. We use an auditor, a financial auditor, who helps us evaluate all of those different data points, and we come up with a schedule of fees. For the very smallest container of paint, it's $0. For the next level up, which is typically a 1 gallon, it's a 1 gallon can, the fee ranges in the Northeast anywhere from 75 cents a gallon to 90 cents, I believe. For a 5 gallon can, it is more. It's somewhere around $1.50, maybe $1.75 for that can of paint. That fee is paid directly from manufacturers. Representative Ebel did a good job explaining this. It's paid directly by the manufacturers on a quarterly basis to the stewardship organization. Then that fee is added to the price of the paint. It is passed down through distributors to the retailers. When a retailer sells that paint, so a consumer in New Hampshire goes into a Sherwin-Williams or a Lowe's or a Home Depot, they buy a can of paint. If it costs $50 a gallon, it's now going to cost $50.75 because of that fee. That's 100% of the revenue for this program, funds the whole program. As I said, we've been very successful in diverting all of this collected material from landfills. In our other states, what we've seen is that it has really had the impact of preventing a lot of dumping, some of the dumping that Representative Aaron described and Representative Ebel as well, because now it's convenient for consumers to bring this paint back to these collection locations. So as I said earlier, the manufacturer estimates their sales in the state and pays directly to the stewardship organization. The stewardship organization develops the plan, including the fee schedule, submits that to the agency. Once the agency approves of it, they'll spend the next couple of months developing the retail network. They will also work with the local municipalities that are collecting paint and sign them up as collection locations. And the local municipalities also stand to gain significantly. So once they're cooperating with Paint Care will pay for the cost of transportation and processing of all of the paint waste that comes into those locations. So it's money they're not spending on a waste stream that they're managing, because Paint Care will pay for that directly. Retailers, when they purchase paint from a manufacturer and a distributor, really nothing changes for them other than they are adding a fee on top of the price of the paint. They can choose to sign up as a collection location, but that is voluntary. They do not need to. The experience for a consumer, when a consumer returns leftover paint, there's absolutely no charge. They take it to a collection location, ask for a customer service agent. The customer service agent will look at it and go, okay, that's a paint product. I'm going to put that in my Paint Care bin. And the customer hopefully purchases something else before they leave. Foot traffic is important to retailers. when they're purchasing paint, their experience doesn't change either. They're picking out their paint color, having it mixed, going to the cash register, and the only thing that's different is there's an added fee on top of that can. They'll also get educational information from the retailer and from Paint Care, quite honestly, to sort of educate about what this program is all about. Contractors actually benefit a great deal from this program. We have a service called large volume pickup. When contractors accumulate a lot of leftover paint, they can call us up, and instead of them having to put all that stuff in a truck, transport it to a collection location, we will send a truck directly to them. Pick it up, absolutely no cost. It's just part of our service. We'll take it directly to a processor and have it processed. So if this bill becomes law, Paint Care will work for the next 12 months to develop our program plan. And while they're doing that, they're working collaboratively with the agency on the content of that program plan. We will also pay the agency for their time. There's a fee that we will pay when we submit the program plan. And then following that, we will pay an annual fee to the agency as well for their time to administer and oversee the program. And I think those are all the points that I wanted to cover. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my questions. I actually have two, if you don't mind. The first one is, of the 20% that is not able to be recycled of the latex paint, where does that go?
That most likely goes to a landfill. That's paint that's typically frozen and thawed, 8, 9, 10 times, that can't be recycled, or it's contaminated in some way.
Okay.
And it's typically the latex. It's not typically the solvent.
Okay. And my second question is, so the manufacturer is not just including this in the production fee, the sales, the price for the wholesale price anymore, right? This is now a tax to the consumer.
It's a user fee. It's not a fee that's set by the manufacturer. It's a fee schedule that is developed by an independent financial auditor working with Paint Care. So it's not something that they're including in their algorithm when they set the price of the paint.
Let's try not to get into an argument over.
I'm just for clarity. No, just for clarity.
Yep.
So when I go to, say, Home Depot and I get a gallon of paint for $22, that's when I bring it up, it's going to add a fee after that.
Correct.
See, it was a good question.
Well, there will be, there is that fee. So whatever the purchase price is, the fee's then added to it. So if it's marked that way, it'll be, however it is, the purchase price will be marked accordingly.
Can we just clear that up?
So again, if I
Yeah.
understand this, on the retail side, I go in and I buy my can of paint, the price that's on the wall that says this costs $22 would be inclusive of the fee. I'm not going to be surprised when I show up at the checkout kit.
Thank you.
Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you. I have two questions.
You may.
Sorry. First one is, I see that Paint Care is a 501c3. Is it currently registered with the Secretary of State in New Hampshire? Or are you waiting until you see if we enact this bill?
We're not working in New Hampshire right now, so we don't have any business activity going on. That will be a state-specific LLC once the bill is passed.
An LLC?
A limited liability corporation.
Not a 501c3?
Yes, it will be.
Okay, and thank you. My second question is, you said there would be a fee paid by Paint Care toward the agency. As I'm looking at the fiscal note, it requires the department thinks they need to hire someone half-time at a cost of $49,000, $50,000. Would that fee, which is that cost, which is currently apparently general fund costs, would that cover what percentage of the cost to the department for that half-time employee?
But the philosophy of Paint Care is to reimburse the agency for 100% of its costs. So however and that'll be, a negotiated element of the program plan, because that'll be part of the program plan. So working with the agency, they'll let us know, there'll be some mechanism to figure out what their costs are.
Further questions from the committee? Thank you. We're all
Okay.
set. I'm going to ask DES to come up. We have two representatives from DES to answer questions that we might have from the committee, because I know I have one based on the fiscal note.
Is red on? Okay.
Great. Introduce yourselves.
Good morning, Senators. For the record, my name is Michael Nork, representing the Solid Waste Management Bureau at the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. I have with me Todd Piskovitz, who is representing the Hazardous Waste Management Bureau at DES. We are not taking an official position on the bill, although we have worked extensively with the sponsor and American Coatings Association on the technical aspects of this bill. And so we're not really here to provide testimony per se, but we are happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
I'll open it up to the committee members first. Any questions? So I just have a couple of questions based on the fiscal note. So again, is it the intention of the department that if this bill is to become law and that 20-hour-a-week person that is required, that will be part of the plan for reimbursement to the municipality,
Right.
to the agency?
I don't anticipate that we would hire somebody for this position, but we will set up an accounting code so that any work spent on this program would be identified on timesheets or whatever, so that those fees can then be sent to Paint Care and we can establish exactly what we're spending on the program, and we expect to be reimbursed for that.
And that'll be part of the plan process that we.
Right, correct. Right.
So ultimately, there'll be no state expense on the DES side for this program if we implement it, because that'll be covered through the user fees.
That's right.
And we tried to develop the fiscal note, the worksheet that we submitted to LBA, we tried to develop it in a way that reflected that. So there's a revenue and an expenditure that are equal to the state. So it's essentially a wash. That's where you see the 49,000 revenue coming from Paint Care to reimburse us for administrative costs, and then the expenses, 49,000, but it essentially washes out.
And as Representative Ebel mentioned in her testimony, we anticipate the first year and a half is going to take us more time and effort, because we have to establish the program. We have to work with Paint Care on their plan, and we will potentially be writing rules for it as well. So there'll be a lot of work going forward. Once it's established, I think it'll be a lot less work, but we'll still have to oversee, and there'll be some work we'll be spending on it.
My second question has to do with the second half of the fiscal note that talks about savings to local municipalities and local taxpayers. It's estimated about $150,000 a year. If this program is implemented, that would be saved due to the fact that the hazardous waste materials for the purposes of paint will be covered by Paint Care versus the local municipality for disposal, tipping costs, that kind of thing.
Right. I would say that number is probably quite low. We run a household hazardous waste grant program, and we provide grant assistance to something like 23 municipalities or regional planning commissions around the state. And based on the numbers we're getting from that grant program is where that 100 and something thousand came from. But there are many places, many municipalities that don't participate in the grant program. We have no idea what their costs are.
One more follow-up, based on you just brought the grant program up. That grant program will still continue for the 47% of material that's hazardous waste. That doesn't, we're still keeping that program going.
Yes, yes, we are.
Municipalities have to defray those costs as well.
Right. Yes.
And one clarifying point on that. So the hazardous waste collection aspect of paint management is one cost factor. We don't have any data on non-hazardous waste paint disposal that goes to landfills and what that cost represents to municipalities. So that's another unknown variable. There's additional cost savings that municipalities would realize from not having that paint in their MSW or the trash that gets sent for disposal. So that's just another thing I wanted to mention.
Any other questions for DES? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to testify at HB 451 FN? Sure, Representative Beeble. Oh, that's okay.
If you look at page 3 on line 25 of the bill, it says administrative reimbursement. This was a real thing for me. I really wanted to make sure there was no financial hit to the state for this program. And so this provision very tightly controls the reimbursement situation. So the fiscal note does reflect that, but the language also reflects that. And as the folks from DES said, after the fiscal note was written, I did have a conversation with Director Wimsatt, and he felt like the program management could be handled. Of course, we have another budget coming, but at this point, he felt like the program management could be handled right by the people that are there. But either way, it's going to be defrayed by the manufacturer's cost. The other thing is if you just go to the top of page 3, line 3, it says that a paint collection site authorized shall not charge any additional amount for management of paint when it's offered for collection. So that ensures that the retailer won't do it. There's another provision in here that participation is only voluntary. And then you were asking about the assessment, line 5. It says that they'll include a per container assessment in the cost of the paint. So there's nothing like, it's just all, there's all sorts of costs in any kind of product that you buy, and this would be just part of that. So your question about whether the customer experience would change, the answer is no. They just go and buy their paint. I mean, for the retailer, it's really not going to change either, except that they have the option to collect the paint at the end if they want to.
Representative, Senator Sullivan. Sorry.
Old habits. Thank you. So to follow up with that, and because there was some confusion in the room, would you support an amendment just to line 7 that might add that assessment amount will be included in the sticker price? Just to get rid of any
I mean, if you wanted to do something like that, and, to the extent that there could be collaboration with Chairman Hunt on, because he had, part of the way this is structured was very much directed through him. And, we talked a lot about the assessment and the reflection of the assessment. So, but it is really at its base, it's a user fee. And I think that the chairman had a really good point that the fee is being, whatever is included in the cost of the paint, it's being paid for by the user and not defrayed out across all taxpayers who would have to support the disposal of this particular product otherwise. So it actually, to me, it works really well. Seems like a very Yankee approach.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
No, that's the point that I'm trying to get at. It's included.
Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to testify? Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Is there a mechanism in this bill to make sure that the assessment added to the cost of the container would not exceed the amount of money totally collected to cover the department's cost of this bill?
So there are audit provisions in here so that can be tightly controlled. I don't think anybody's looking to make money on this program. And, of course, from the consumer standpoint and from our standpoint as legislators, what we want is try to help the situation for recycling and for the the consumers and for the program to be self-funded and not more. And the other thing I would say is that this is DES's involvement with it too. As the administrator, you'll see in the bill, there's also a provision in here for an annual report so they can keep an eye on all those things. I personally am reassured because this program is in operation in many other states that a lot of the NITs have been worked through it. And I guess I would also say that that was one of the reasons that things maybe ran aground a little bit the last time that it came through the Senate, is because some of the NITs that Paint Care had worked out weren't necessarily reflected in the bill. And this time we've had we've learned a lot from the experience before, and we've had all the parties at the table working through it. From their standpoint, the program works well, and it didn't go before E&A this time. It went before Commerce, so Commerce had another view on it separate from the whole solid waste analysis. So they were able to think about it from a business standpoint. And Chair Weiler wasn't concerned about the financial part of it, which is why he waived it off from the House.
Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none.
All right, thank you very much.
One more time, is there anybody else who wishes to testify on House Bill 451? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on House Bill 451 and entertain a motion to go into executive session. Been moved by Senator Rosenwald to go into executive session, seconded by Senator Sullivan. All those in favor of going to executive session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right, I just want to have a conversation about 451 as it goes through, as we're talking about it and where it is. To Senator Sullivan, to your point, I'm looking at that line 5 through 7 on page 3 that talks about the purchase price, and what's the definition of purchase price is really the question, right? Does that mean the sticker price that's on the shelf, or is that the price I pay at the end of the day?
Right.
And whether that needs to be further defined or not. Is that kind of your point?
It is, but as we talk about it more, I feel like we've had, this is the same paint tax that we've been fighting for years, right? It can be a consumer fee, but then we could tack a consumer fee onto everything that we do. I mean, if we go to a restaurant and we've got food left over, are we getting a fee for that food being disposed of, right? So I'm concerned about the slippery slope that this is, and I'm not really sure why the manufacturers can't do this on their end if it's only going to be $1 per can.
Further discussion? So again, I struggle with this bill because again, the idea being that you're taxing the people that are causing the problem, right? Not everybody else. Like if I don't paint my house for 20 years, I'm not going to be using this. I don't have to pay the tax. I'm not doing it. But when I do go to paint my house, I'm going to pay an increased fee for it, for painting my house so that I can, and then dispose of the can when I'm done and it doesn't end up in the landfill, given what's going on with landfills nowadays. I hate to say that word in this building, but so my question is, is that appropriate to have a consumer fee to take care of a problem that you can't just throw it in the trash anymore? And so what's the solution? Or are we just not going to create a solution? So,
I wouldn't say this is unprecedented. We have a waste oil tax right now. I think it's like 0.2 cents or something like that on automotive oil and things like that. So there is a precedent for something like this. I think it's different when it comes to food. Food is, biological. It's organic. You can easily dispose of it. You can throw it outside and it'll go away. Whereas paint, I think, the toxicity of it and what we heard, just being that, how we're disposing of it, we've learned a lot over the years on how we dispose of certain things. And I think if we don't take care of it, it'll come back to bite us one day. But I agree that, why isn't the manufacturer willing to step up and pay for it? Why are we responsible to take care of it? And, is the manufacturer ever going to step up and take care of it?
Murphy?
I agree with that.
I share Senator Sullivan's comments and feelings, and I don't think I can support it as a user fee. It's not a pure user fee.
Can you explain that? Because I don't follow that.
To me, the pure user fee would be applied on disposal, not on purchase.
Okay.
So I think that's harder from a mechanic standpoint, but if I buy 10 gallons of paint, I use $99.9 of it. Why would I pay the user fee with somebody who throws away?
Further discussion?
So, in Nashua, we have hazardous waste collection days twice a year, and they're on Saturdays. So I think the city, I mean, maybe the city is getting one of those grants, but we're paying city workers to come in on Saturdays. And I see a cost in that this bill would defray. Also think the fiscal note's wrong because there would not be general funds. There would be other funds and there would not apparently be anybody who needed to be hired to do the work. Apparently the department can handle it with the staff they've got. So there's no updated fiscal note, but I think we figured out there's some issues with it. I never know what to do with paint, and I probably have a garage and basement full of stuff that I really don't know how to dispose of. But it's difficult with only the hazardous waste collection twice a year, latex paint you can't bring. I think a lot of that stuff is getting thrown away. Thanks.
So again, my dilemma, again, I don't like the idea of the fee, but I also like the idea of the people that are causing a problem to solve the problem. And so for me, I'm struggling with the bill and the idea that, I'm also looking at the tax offset, the local property taxes, right? We heard from DES, $150,000 minimum. They expect to have a reduction statewide in property taxes if this was to go into place. That are currently being spread. I buy a can of paint, but you're paying for my hazardous disposal day, right? Whereas if I buy the can of paint, now I'm paying for the hazardous disposal, not you. And so for that reason, I'm inclined to like the bill and shifting that burden from the general taxpayer who's paying for that lot for everybody in town that chose to paint their living room. Someone who didn't paint their living room is paying for that disposal day, whereas the person now would be paying it for themselves. So that's my struggle for me. That's where I'm in favor of the bill for that idea. I like the idea of not charging every taxpayer for something, but rather the person that's causing the problem, making them solve the problem.
So when you say the person causing the problem, I don't think painting your house and having it look nice is a problem. I think if you're looking at who's causing the problem, it's the manufacturer, because we don't have a way to safely dispose of it, right? So then that should be the manufacturer's cost.
Sure, and they're trying to find a way to pay for the disposal. They're not, again, if they're not going to do it on their own, is the argument and discussion, right? If they're not doing it on their own, they had every opportunity to do it on their own. Like, we'll do this, but we need some help, and we want to be able to charge a fee for this in the manufacturing price, or included in the price. Again, that was to Representative Aaron's point. That's the whole point of it's not necessarily a separate line item anymore. The manufacturers are building into their price, and that means they're going to pay the cost. They're like, I can buy a can of Sherwin-Williams over here and a different can over here that's cheaper. I'm going to buy whatever I choose to buy. So it's a consumer price thing, and it equalizes the playing field.
So I don't know if I just misunderstood you. Did you say
Yeah, we have
the manufacturer is putting in the cost? Because I think the retailer is putting in the cost.
No, the manufacturer is increasing their price based, if I understand correctly, yes, but based on the plan, they'll increase their price to the retailer, right? And then that retailer will add that price into the cost. That's so that, again, that label that's on the shelf that says my paint's $22. When I show up at the store, when I show up at the cash register, it's not $20.50, it's $22.
And it's still optional. So.
Well, the optional
correct?
part is we're not requiring everybody who sells paint to be a collection site.
But every paint can in New Hampshire will have the fee.
Correct.
Thank you. It also occurs to me, and this is a random thought, that because Paint Care is a 501c3, the manufacturers will be getting some kind of tax deduction on this, which is good for business. I mean,
So why don't they just pay for the fee anyway?
well, I mean, I think paint's really expensive to begin with. So I don't know that somebody would notice a 50% charge. It could be that, you know, the different retailers lower the price of their paint to be competitive while still including the cost of that assessment by putting Sherwin-Williams on sale 1 week or Benjamin Moore. So I'm not convinced that this would automatically increase the cost of paint to the consumer. Because I think of the, you know, competitive nature of really retailing.
So Murphy.
I'm on the website for the Manchester transfer station. They do, much like Nashua, there's a disposal day a couple times a year. But they don't just take paint. They take pesticides, they take pool chemicals, they take drain openers, they take household cleaners. There's a long list here of things they take on these disposal days. So I don't think we can say that those things are going to go away. The cost will be there. The same cost is going to be there to have people come in, whatever day it is, a Friday or a Saturday, whatever. So I don't think it's necessarily a cost savings for local taxpayer, at least not on that point. And think about the precedent we're setting, because if we're going to do this to paint, we've got pesticides and disinfectants and antifreeze and pool chemicals and everything else to worry about that has similar problems. These are all hazardous waste. So I see the problem. I'd like to find a way to address the problem. I'm not sure this is the right solution. Mr. Chairman, if you don't want to exec it today, we can hold the bill.
Yeah, I'm not going to exec it today. We've had enough discussion. I think
We
we
can
want
talk
to
about a
think
way to
about it.
maybe do something that works for everybody.
I will say, if you look at the packet we got of letters of supporting the estimate was 53% of all the hazardous waste material is paint. So 47% is all those other items you're talking about, but the majority of which is paint that's coming to our recycling centers on those hazardous wastes.
So there was conversation about this creates foot traffic for the retailer. So wouldn't this be a great program for retailers to do? Say today's the day that we're taking the paint. We're going to pay for the recycling fee. Come on into Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and this is like a goodwill gesture for retailers. Like, this is a great opportunity for them if they're looking for the foot traffic for this. This is a great day of celebration of bringing in your paint. Like so I would just like to see this on the retailers, if they're the ones that are going to benefit from it, instead of putting the fee on the consumer.
All right, we'll stop the conversation there. I'll entertain and we'll pick it back up on our next meeting and decide and see if we have a solution there. Read the bills. If there's an amendment somewhere that somebody wants to bring it. Let's talk. We'll talk about it. Right, everything's on the table. So, and with that, I'd entertain a motion to come out of executive session. Been moved by Senator Fenton, seconded by Senator Sullivan to come out of executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Business today being done, the Ways and Means Committee is adjourned.
We can meet next week.
Sonia, it's next, what do we meet? No, we're meeting in 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks.
Got the line that says that.